Luke Davies, you were the screenwriter of Lion. Talk a little bit about adapting this book that's based on this incredible true story.
Yeah, it is a story. And when the story came to me, the opportunity to write this screenplay, I was so excited for weeks, and I fortunately had to get from the producers of this adaptation. The fundamental beauty of it for me was that the story felt incredibly like primal and mythic, like this ancient fable about reunification with lost mother. And on the other hand, completely new myth, because this story could never have happened in the history of human civilization. It could not have happened until 10 years ago when Google released Google Earth. And so those two things together felt really exciting. Age-old myth that probably goes back to the origins of human storytelling, with this really exhilarating technological aspect to the story. And also the sense that this didn't have to be a movie where the technology was just like plot point logistical kind of stuff, but that it was the movie right with a 5-year-old child wandering around in this world full of peril. We were with him then in the second half of the movie. Then the technological screen-to-screen Google Earth stuff would feel exhilarating because it was part of his emotional quest for restitution and redemption.
Right, and what's really interesting about the structure of this film is that it's really divided in half, in a way. I mean, you have the half that's set in India with the young Saru, and the half that's set in Australia with him as a man in his late 20s, early 30s. So in the writing, in the screenwriting of it, talk about constructing it so that there's these two halves.
Yeah, Garth Davis, the director, he was on board before I was. Part of me getting the job, in a sense, was he and I getting to know each other, and I guess that we felt the compatibility and that we could work together. We both very early on came to the conclusion that this story was so pure and beautiful that in the non-traditional way doesn't easily get movies financed. Yes, let's begin with a non-professional 5-year-old actor speaking in Hindi for the first 45, 50 minutes with English subtitles. That's a way to get a film financed. We're aware that that was difficult. And yet the producers supported us in our argument that, you know what, we could do this if we just begin the movie at the moment this poor little 5-year-old boy makes a mistake and a catastrophe begins and his whole life changes. That if we were on that ride, it doesn't matter about non-professional actors and subtitles. It's all good if we find the right kid, and we did find the right kid. It's amazing. And then so at the second half of the film, we meet the adult Saru, and the moment we meet him, it's kind of like he's emerging from a baptism, comes out of the water where he's very sporty, healthy Australian guy now. And 5 minutes later, a kind of event happens that brings back some memories for him, and which have been long suppressed. And his own quest begins to try and see how he can go about finding home.
Mm-hmm. So much of the film is kind of insular. You know what I mean? I mean, so much of it is about this guy looking at maps and thinking about things and kind of ruminating in silence. As a writer, is that difficult for you to convey stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes as a screenwriter, there's kind of assumed rules that we all have as screenwriters, and occasionally these rules are worth breaking. Occasionally it's okay. A line that's sort of abstract and poetic it's not concrete. It's not what you're seeing on the screen, but it's like a message to the actor about what we're feeling spiritually and emotionally at this moment. And likewise for the first half of the film, about it's not that I was describing rich interior psychological stuff for 5-year-old Saru, but it's that it's very dialogue spare in the first half of the movie. Staff very bewildered in this very hostile environment. There's long stretches of not a lot of dialogue. So I was writing these description scenes of what he's doing, and we never realized the basic rule is 1 page per minute of screen time. In fact, in those early stages, what was happening was that my script was 1 page per 2 minutes of screen time. So the film was blowing out because I had pages of just paragraph after paragraph of things that are happening to him, but without dialogue. That was a little bit of a problem that made the first cut of the film come in at sort of 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. But we just felt that if we had sufficiently engaged the audience in the dilemma at a gut level as a 5-year-old kid, then when we came through to 25 years later, then hopefully the audience was still with us. It's still the one person. There's just a 25-year gap in the middle of the film. So we tried not to consider it to be like 2 separate halves that didn't really match or that were radically different. To us, they were spiritually complementary. The same story was the journey, just that there was a 25-year period in that journey where he was repressing stuff because his new life was kind of so miraculous that he felt this guilt that if his parents knew that he had these thoughts and these dreams and desires of reunification with his lost home, that would hurt their feelings. Of course, this wasn't the case, but that's just the baggage that Saru developed from a 5-year-old to a 25-year-old.
Well, it certainly does work as a cohesive narrative. A lot of credit to you. Anyway, in terms of research, did you, you're working with the source material, obviously, but did you do any other kind of research, going to India, meeting with the real guy, anything that would help give a sense of authenticity to the script?
Yeah, the research experience for me was absolutely beautiful. When they said you've got the job, the very next sentence was, and you've got to get on a plane and go to India right there. He's going to show you around all the real places where all this stuff happened. In particular, his hometown, the surroundings, the dam, the railway stations in the home region. And most importantly of all, I met his biological mother, Kamala, and sat with her and Saru and an interpreter for 2 or 3 hours and just talked. Or I asked questions and she answered. And for me, that were the important parts of my research, because what room with her was that my understanding of the emotional heart of the story transferred from Saru's memoir, which I read and which is amazing and extraordinary, to being in this room with this person and completely seeing her sorrow and grief that had extended over 25 years, and it was now finally being relieved. I kept asking questions, I kept apologizing for every question. She kept saying, no, I want to do this, I want to do this. She and Saru sat there just stroking and caressing each other. And it was incredible because it went so deeply into my gut at that point, because I knew then what I was aiming towards at the end of the screenplay. I knew how the reunification should feel and how, hopefully, if I did my job well, how we, the audience, should feel emotionally at the end of the film. We should feel both the exhaustion that we've just been through and the redemption that they experience at that moment, if we job. And what I did was the way station right at the beginning of the film, because it's Luke Davies, the director, is just a magnificent person. It's his first feature film. It's incredible, and it's what he did that to me is extraordinary and beautiful. And so I still feel like an observer to the film now when I watch it, even though I wrote it, even though I know what happens. I still just feel like an observer, and I cry every time I see it.
It certainly is an emotional film, and to its credit, I think it's able to bring you to tears without it being overly sentimental, maudlin, without it, I guess, being inauthentic, really. Is that a challenge when you're writing something that is that kind of that highly emotional material, and to make it feel truthful as opposed to just uh, pulling at
Yeah.
you to get an emotion from you?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge, and it was a challenge that we were very conscious of. Kind of mission statement was no sentimentality, no syrupiness, no overtly maudlin, well, no maudlin content at all, no manipulative, no manipulative easy stuff, no exoticization of India. In particular, allow the raw power of the story with all its kind of rough edges to just sit comfortably and be. So consciously we're striving not to, in a sense, Hollywoodize the story with obvious elevated beats that were spoon feeding the audience. And we were lucky, we feel blessed and lucky because Seesaw Films are that kind of company. That they don't make those kind of films. You know, they make films like The King's Speech, which are in demanding without moving too much into obvious kind of filmic tropes. But we were very supported to do that, and Garth has his own vision for how a film like that should be, and we never felt that we were being pressured by producers to commercialize the sort of, or to make more obvious the emotional beats.
Right. I wonder if you could talk a bit more about what the collaboration between you and Garth Davis was like. As you said, this was his first feature film, but you couldn't tell that from watching it. So what was that collaboration like between the two of you?
So the first thing that happened for me with the collaboration was that it was a kind of really genuine kind of love at first sight friendship. Probably because Garth is a very extraordinarily kind of radiant human being. It's like unique to me that I was just like, oh my God, I give my heart to this man. He's such a true artist. Pretty much everybody who has crossed paths with Garth has been having this experience. Dev Patel, Rooney Mara, Nicole Kidman. Rooney's just come back for seconds, and Garth has just finished shooting his second film, Mary Magdalene, in Italy, starring Rooney Mara. Joaquin Phoenix as Jesus, and an incredible script, and I'm sure that's going to be an exciting film. But Garth's that kind of person. So the first thing is he's an amazing human being, and it's really fun to work with him. He laughs all the time. And the second thing is he has a real clear vision of what he wants and sees, what his artistic is. And at exactly the same time, he's really quite egoless and very, very open about not feeling uncomfortable about what he doesn't know, what he doesn't know the answer to. And so when you're working with someone like that, it makes it really fertile and collaborative, and all this cross-fertilization goes on because, in a sense, the egos are left at the door. I don't know if I've had too many experiences in my limited screenwriting career working with really problematic people with like uncomfortable, and this is not fun. But this whole experience with Lion has not been within a million miles of that kind of thing. And I think that comes from Garth's leadership down. Sorry, rambling. At a more technical level, we came to LA, we spent about 10 days with a whiteboard. I spent 3 months sort of working on the first draft, and then I delivered that, and then there were notes from Garth and Neil Sherman and Ian Cannon, and then I did more drafting. It was kind of a really rapid 6-month period until that second draft, when they then took that script to the Cannes Film Festival, gave it to a bunch of studios, and said, okay, you guys got 4 days to read this script, which we are very excited about, and so read it and then tell us what you think. So I guess strategically what Seesaw Films did was create a kind of, healthy bidding war situation, which the Weinsteins won. And so then from that point, there was like another year of script tweaking and more notes and getting the characters more complex, their psychological journeys in the second one. I was always really closely in that engine room with Garth. And then, of course, once the film began shooting, I wasn't really involved. We also didn't have a situation where once we had a shooting script, it wasn't like, hey, this isn't working, we need emergency rewrites. None of that happened. The final film is really remarkably, or really pleasingly close to the shooting script. And at that point, Garth was off in another world with actors and cinematographers and production designers and so on. I dropped into set class. It was very pleasant, but I was level of like, okay, I'm working. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, this is fun. I can sit back and raid the food.
Well, it's a great movie and a fantastic script. Luke Davies, congratulations, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thanks, Zach. Pleasure.
Have a good one.